others. Her first book, Embodying Soul, A Return to Wholeness, a memoir of new beginnings, won several awards, including a 2020 IPA award for mind, body, and spirit. Currently, she's fascinated by the topic of human transformation, so am I, and praying for it, and what that can create for both the individual and the collective. Now, you can find more of her work at Keri, K-E-R-I, Mangis, M-A-N-G-I-S.com. So help me welcome Keri Mangis.
Thank you. Well, good morning. It's lovely to see you all here today on this gorgeous summer, fall Sunday. And it's always an honor to get to speak here at the Lake Harriet Spiritual Community. I love this time of year, really, where we're in between seasons, and you wake up one day and it feels like a return to summer, and then another, and you got your cozy jacket and slippers on. And I used to be such a summer girl. Like, I used to just love summer. And now I just find more and more that I'm starting to really crave that fall and that even winter a little bit. You know, I'm not wishing for it or trying to rush it, but a little bit, because what I really love about the fall and the winter is more silence. Well, maybe not the leaf blowers, but especially as we get into winter, I long for that silence. And we just don't get very much of it these days. And I live here in this neighborhood, and there's planes everywhere, and there's cars driving by, and there's, you know, you can't even get your gas anymore, right, without the volume suddenly blasting on the TV. And then there's our phones that are constantly, and there's just so much noise. And did you know that sound, it's the one sense that you just can't turn off completely? Right? You can close your eyes, you can choose not to taste or touch something, you can breathe through your mouth if you don't want to smell something, but with your ears, you really can't completely turn them off, right? Like, did you know that even noise-canceling headphones, they're just pumping in an anti-sound to equalize the waves? So that's not true silence. So we just don't get it very often, and especially now. And so I wanted to start today with giving us a little bit of that opportunity to just be silent in this space and with each other, and to not do anything in that silence. You know, a lot of times we get silent and then we focus immediately on the breath or on this or on that. But I am going to guide you into a little relaxation, and then I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes in silence where your only work is to observe. So rather than trying to stop your thoughts, just watch your thoughts. Rather than trying to change your breath, just watch your breath. And then I'll invite you back. So to begin, just relax into your seat and maybe roll your shoulders forward, up, back, and down. Bring your feet to the floor if that's comfortable. Your back straight, your chin parallel to the floor, so that the crown of your head feels like it's tethered in the heavens. Nice long spine, open heart, grounded through the hips and the feet. And just a couple of breaths here, and we'll settle into the silence. just want to take this moment then to remind you to bring silence into your daily lives. Even a moment or two can be restorative and rejuvenative. And as you're ready, you can come back into your body, into the space, and you can open your eyes. Notice how you feel just a little bit better. So as mentioned, every month here at the Lake Harriet Spiritual Community, there's a theme. And so this month's theme is aging gracefully. And if you've been to my talks before, you know that I like etymology. I like to study the origin of words, where they come from and what they really mean. And so I was looking into the word grace. I've always loved the word grace. It was my grandmother's name, and it is my oldest daughter's middle name. So I love it. I love the idea of grace. I love the sound of the word. I love the idea of being in grace or to present something with grace. It's just so lovely. Well, when I look up the etymology of the word, it goes back to the Latin word gratus, which means pleasing or thankful. And when I think about aging in the context of being pleasing, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that I want to age in a way that pleases others. Thankfulness, I could see that. I like good practice of gratitude, appreciating where I am and my family and the things in my life. But it put me on a little, I don't know. And so then I looked at the synonyms of the word grace, and I found elegance, poise, charm, politeness, and courtesy. And while I could say that these all sound really lovely too, I'm not entirely sure that this is how I want to describe the way I want to continue to move into my later years. Because something about these synonyms, to me, sounds quiet, demure, agreeable, right? Something about it sounds a little bit passive, a little unproblematic, not willing to rub against the grain, just going with the flow, not willing to risk getting into any trouble. And so I thought maybe we could say today's talk is aging gracefully and beyond. Because I have a few more ideas of how we can age. I have 7 of them, in fact. Because I want more than just to age and become less. I don't want to become less vocal. I don't want to become less active. I don't want to become less participatory. I don't want to become less engaged. I want to become more and more as I grow older. You know, society thinks that aging is a kind of decline. You know, here's youth and here's aging, right? But aging is its own kind of growth. There are some things that you can access in aging that you cannot have when you are young. There are some things that only aging can grant you. So I think I want more. And I hope that you want more. And I think that our society needs us to become more, not less. First of all, I want to become more compassionate. Compassion is another one of my favorite words that I love to break down and really explore its deeper meaning. Compassion is really made of 2 words, calm and passion. It means with passion. It means to feel along with somebody else because we understand that we are all one. And we understand that there is no human expression or experience or emotion that someone else can have that you don't have within yourself. Come on in. And it means that no matter what you're ever feeling, somebody else has also, or will also, or has also experienced that. That's compassion, the willingness to understand that there's nothing that is beyond us. There's no such thing as that feeling out there. I would never have that. Not me. No, if it's human, and it's in all of us. We are all in this life together, and being able to come into a place of compassion is one of our greatest strengths. It's not empathy. It's bigger than empathy, because empathy is feeling for somebody. And it's not pity, because pity separates us. And there is enough of that happening in our world. So a practice of compassion is a radical act, especially in a time like this that is so divisive and so dehumanizing, and where the pull to separate ourselves and silo ourselves is strong. Compassion is a radical act. And I want to share with you just a story that demonstrates how powerful compassion really is. There was a master who had 3 students, and he had worked with them for many years, teaching them all kinds of things, compassion among them. And one day, their service came to an end, and it was time for them to go off. About a year later, the master got curious as to what had happened to his students, and so he sent his assistant out to find out. The assistant was gone for a little while, some time, a few days, and finally returned back, and the master said, "Well, what did you find out?" And the assistant said that the first student, you'll be pleased to hear, is just here in this village, teaching your teachings and creating a following of students, and you would be proud to see how revered and respected they are. And the master was pleased. Well, what about the second student? Yes, it took me a little longer to find the second student, for he had traveled far away. See, he doesn't want to stay put in one place. He wants to sprinkle the teachings around. So he's traveling and bringing your teachings, sprinkling them like seeds. And the master said, "That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that." Well, what about the third student? And the assistant said, "Yeah, it took me a really long time to find her. I asked everywhere. No one had heard of her, seen her. And finally, I got to the edge of the village where I found a man who lives with 1 foot in and 1 foot outside the village. And he said, yes, I think I have seen her. She is up in that tower, sitting by the window. And it looks like she's looking out, but she's got a handkerchief over her eyes, so nobody really understands what she's doing. And the people are a little bit afraid of her. She's a little eccentric and a little bit weird and a little bit odd, and nobody really understands what she's up to." And the master immediately fell to his knees and bowed in her direction. And the assistant said, "I don't understand." And the guru said, "She is practicing Tonglen meditation, which is a Buddhist practice of compassion. She is taking all of the world's pains and traumas and aches and losses, and she is transmuting them into healing and love and light. And she's doing that hour after hour after hour, day after day after day." And the assistant said, "Well, I just don't understand why the handkerchief over her eyes." And the master said, "So that her tears don't disrupt her practice." That's power. Practice of Tonglen is available to all of us, by the way. You start with yourself. You work one-on-one, you and you, transmuting your own pain into healing, like taking lead and turning it into gold. You become the alchemist. It's not easy work because you have to breathe in the fullness of your pain. You can't pretend it's less. You can't pretend it's other. And then you transmute it into healing. And as you strengthen in that practice, you invite another person in your imagination or in real life to sit with you and do the practice. Now you're breathing in the pain for 2 people and you're breathing out the relief for 2 people. And then maybe as you grow in the practice, you bring in more and more and more. And this woman was doing it on behalf of the whole world. That's how powerful. They say that if it weren't for people practicing Tonglen on this planet, we'd have already expired. Compassion practice is not for the youth. Compassion practice is for those of us who can hold, who can transmute, who can understand, who can feel deeply and not break. That's us. I don't know that that woman in the tower was so concerned about whether or not she was pleasing to others, or whether or not her tears made her elegant. I think it was more. Number 2, as I grow older, I want to become more curious and more creative with every passing day. These things are often reserved for the youth, right? When we're young, we get to ask questions, we get to ask why, and then we become adults and we're supposed to know. And we're supposed to plateau and we're supposed to become experts. And as far as artists, well, you know, if you didn't have an inclination towards painting or singing, well, then you're not an artist. But artistry is in all of us. We are all artists with our own expression of beauty in this life, whether it's setting a dinner table or planting a garden or creating a conversation. There are all kinds of ways to be creative and curious. And I want to see these things grow in me and in you. I want to see us continue to ask why. I want us to continue to wonder and expand our imagination and grow into more possibility, more and more, not less and less. And it's important to once in a while drop back into that state of a beginner's mind. You know, when we were young, we were in a beginner's mind all the time, learning something new. And as we get older, we have a tendency to fall into habits and routines, places of comfort. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong to have settled into some things that bring you simple joys and pleasures, but we also need to have something in our lives all the time that is challenging us to grow, challenging us to try something different, get in a beginner's mind, open that up. But in order to learn something new, we have to let something go first. You know, I grew up crocheting. Anyone, any crocheters in here? Any knitters in here? Crochet and knitting? Yeah, a couple of you. Yeah, I grew up crocheting, and crocheting, so for those of you that don't know, it has a hook. The needle has a hook. And so when you're working with the yarn, you use the hook to pull the needle through. So I was always fascinated by knitters because they're working with those 2 straight needles, and I'm always thinking, how do they manage the yarn if they don't have a hook? So a couple years ago, I went and took lessons, beginning knitting lessons. And there's nothing just more uncomfortable than sitting in that space and like trying to hold these needles. I kept dropping them, and they make such a loud noise on the floor, and you know, everyone's looking at you. And I couldn't figure out how to manage the yarn if I didn't have a hook. And finally, I learned, well, it's just a twist of the wrist, right? Okay. But I had to unlearn how to use a hook so that I could learn how to knit, right? And now here I am 2 years later, and I've made shawls and mittens and hats, and it's one of my greatest pleasures. And then I was walking by an art stand the other day, and it was about quilting, and I thought, you know, maybe quilting. I host a podcast. It's called Awaken Your Power. And I invite guests on it. And in my criteria for guests, I say, leave your expert posturing behind. I don't want experts. Experts, they're a dime a dozen. I can find them anywhere. I want people who are still asking questions. I want people who are still wondering, who will ponder with me the mysteries of the human mind, of the human experience, of what could be possible. I need people who can see and reach beyond the veil, who are not so civilized, not so cultivated, not so settled, that they can't ask, but why? Number 3, I want to grow into more and more wisdom. And wisdom is very different from knowledge. Knowledge you can gain from books, you can gain from podcasts, you can gain all kinds of places. Wisdom you have to churn yourself. Can't be sprinkled on you by a fairy. Can't be borrowed. You have to earn it. You have to create it and cultivate it in the same way. You have to take that lead of your life and turn it into gold. You have to be the alchemist and the magician to become wise. Stephen Jenkinson wrote a book. It's called Becoming of Age, or Come of Age. And I see it as kind of the Bible of becoming an elder. And in this book, he says this: an old person might say that he or she has forgotten more than you've ever known. An elder would say they have lost more certainty than you've ever had. He differentiates the older person from the elder person, because years alone don't make you wise. Wisdom is something that you choose. It is something that you practice. As I age, I want to get into some more good trouble. In the words of the late John Lewis. There is a syndrome growing around right now called invisibility syndrome. A lot of women over 50 experience it. Men probably do too. Where we feel more and more invisible as we get older, right? And we think that this is kind of a bad thing or a negative or something. But you know, I remember when I was a kid and you'd play those games with your friends and you'd say, if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be? You know what I always said? Invisible. I want to be invisible. Because, you know, I can do a whole lot of things if people aren't watching. I can be a little sneakier, right? I can be a catalyst of change in a whole different way if eyes aren't exactly on me all the time. Let me give you a little example of what I mean. You've seen the show Grace and Frankie with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. One of my favorites. Talk about a TV show that is not about aging gracefully, but aging gracefully and beyond. Right. So Grace, love that her name is Grace, fitting for today. Grace is Jane Fonda, and Frankie is Lily Tomlin, and they decide one day in the show that they want to be a little naughty and go smoke. So they go to the store to buy a pack of cigarettes. But they are trying to get the clerk's attention. But he's not seeing them. He is so focused on these beautiful, youthful girls over here, and they're trying to scream and get his attention. They're just trying to buy a pack of cigarettes, and they can't be seen. And so Jane Fonda's character, Grace, throws a fit, and they go out to the car, and they're sitting there, and Frankie pulls out the pack of cigarettes from her coat. And Grace is like, where did you get those? Did you steal those? And she said, can't see me, can't stop me. I wrote that down. Because I thought, you know what? That's an attitude I can embrace. I also like fried green tomatoes. And you have Kathy Bates, right? And she's waiting patiently for a parking spot and her blinkers on. Remember the scene? And then 2 young women in a convertible screech in and take her spot. And they taunt her and they say, well, we're younger and we're faster. And she decides, well, I've had enough of this, and she takes her car and she rams into theirs, and they're panicked and they run out. What did you do that for? And she goes, I'm older and I have more insurance. I'm not advocating for the behaviors here, but maybe a little bit for the attitude. We just lost Diane Keaton yesterday. I think of somebody who has aged with a little bit of good trouble, or at least not aged in the way that she was told to or expected to. So in honor of her, I found a quote from her today that's fitting for us today. And she said, "What is perfection anyway? It's the death of creativity. That's what I think. While change, on the other hand, is the cornerstone of new ideas." And then, of course, I have to honor Jane Goodall today, who never aged the way society expected her to. I don't know that she cared so much whether or not she looked elegant or poised when she was advocating for things she really cared about. I do want to share a story of wholeness, coming into wholeness. Because this is the other thing I want for me as we grow older, and what I want for you as we grow older. All of my work is really about wholeness. No matter what angle I take it, it all comes down to wholeness. And what is wholeness but wanting to be all of ourselves? To not walk around as half a person. And how do we become half a person? Well, when we were young, we all wanted to belong and to fit in and to be loved. That is the most common human urge, right? We all want that. And so whether it was about belonging in our family or belonging in a group or belonging in the culture at large, we learned through observation that some things were allowed and some things were dissuaded. And so we started compartmentalizing ourselves, and we started setting some things aside. Maybe we thought, we'll just set that aside for later. But as we grow older, we tend to forget about these parts of ourselves that we've set aside. We forget to go back and reclaim them. And then as we get older and into our adolescence and young adulthood, we start trading away more pieces of ourselves. We say, you know what, sure, I'll give you a little piece of my dignity or my self-esteem if it means I can have a little more safety or a little more power. We all do it in different ways and at different levels. And pretty soon we hit our 30s, maybe our 40s, and we have that midlife crisis, and people laugh and think it's funny. A midlife crisis, it's an invitation. It's a powerful invitation back to go and reclaim the things I call in the shadowlands, the pieces of ourselves that we have left behind in order to fit in or to belong, to the point that we have become half a person. To me, that's what any kind of a breakdown is, any kind of a crisis is, a calling to go and become more whole. So there's a story. It's called The Half Boy. It's from Borneo. And it goes a little like this. There was a boy who was born a long time ago, and yet not so very long ago, who was only half. He had one leg, one arm, one eye, one ear, so forth. And he cried all the time. And in the beginning, all the neighbors and his mother, they felt sorry for him, and they tried to do whatever they could to help him, but he just kept crying and crying. And to the point that eventually the villagers just kind of forgot about him and gave up on him. Until one day, he decided it was time to leave the village. So he dragged himself out of the village, far away, until he came across a river. And on the other side of the river, he saw another half boy. It was his other half. And now you might think that maybe the two just united and it was a beautiful reunion. But instead they tangled and they fought and they struggled to integrate. And eventually the two of them tumbled into the water together, and the water churned and bubbled for a good long moment until it finally went eerie and still. And then finally, after some time, the boy emerged whole. And he started walking, and he didn't know which way he was going, but he was going back to the village. And he came across an older man who had 1 foot inside the village and 1 foot outside the village. He was the elder. And the elder told him, "You are returning to the village from whence you came. And ever since you left, there has been no dancing, no singing, no joy at all in the village." And so the two, the youthful boy and the elder, hooked arms and returned to the village and brought back the dancing, brought back the music, and brought back the wholeness. Stories have multiple layered meanings. There is no one meaning to this story. Whatever spoke to you is what it meant. But one of the things that I think of is that work of becoming whole is never so easy as saying, yes, I'm just going to reclaim this. It takes tumult inside us. It takes us time to struggle with ourselves, to accept that part back, to take that part back, to accept that, yes, we have this too. That's a struggle. It's not an easy thing. And it is not for the youth. It is not for the faint of heart. And it's also a story about the connection between the youth and the elder, right? The boy and the elder. And how there's a connection between the two of them. And how the village needs both. We have decided in our Western culture that we don't need the elder. We have done away with the archetype of the elder altogether. In many indigenous societies, there is still the elder that is revered and sought out for guidance and is still respected and held in a higher regard. But Western society, we said, we don't need that. So we have a disconnect. We don't have storytellers. We don't have the people who pass down the wisdom. And so we keep making the same mistakes over and over again because there's no changing of the hand. There's no connectivity between youth and elder. In our culture, instead of the elder, we have the hero. We all know the archetype of the hero, right? The one who will come in and save the day. We've been integrated into the idea of the hero since we were little. Every movie, most movies, use the arc of the hero's journey to shape the movie, where the hero goes out and faces trials and tribulations and comes back and takes up his rightful place as leader while everyone else surrounds him beneath. There is no community with a hero. But what do we do when we watch the news or read the paper? We say, who's going to stand up and be the hero? Somebody's got to. We're always looking for the hero to say the truth, to do the thing. We keep waiting because we don't have elders. And we don't have this connection. We all have an inner elder within us to awaken, and instead of doing that, we're saying, where's our hero? There are multiple problems with the hero for right now. And here are just some of them. Number one, the hero is always male. Even Joseph Campbell admitted as such that the hero's journey is from the male perspective. Right away, you cut off half the population's wisdom. Just like that. Not only that, but you cut off half within each of us, because we are all masculine and feminine, yin and yang. And so by saying we need a hero and saying that the hero is masculine, we have cut ourselves off from the wisdom of the yin, from the wisdom of cycles. Feminine is cycles, masculine is linear. So we only see the world through a linear lens. We don't see the cycles of death and rebirth and reinvention. We don't see the power in these things because we're always just looking at everything linearly. The hero is all conquering, right? In the myths. And do you have a story of the hero negotiating with the dragon? He slays the dragon, right? He has to conquer. This is part of the hero motif. This is what he does. So there's no room for compromise. There's no room for mercy. There's no room for middle grounds or gray grounds or nuance. The hero is all black and white. The hero is out to save the world, not transform the world, to save the world. By saving the world, that means that he's going to put everything back the way it was. Status quo preserver, that's what the hero is. If we want transformation, we need an elder, not a hero. We need someone who carries wisdom of the ages, someone who stands with one foot inside the village and one foot outside the village, so that they can see more clearly but still feel everything. The hero wants to always go it alone. They have their sidekicks, right? They have their helpers. But this is prime individualism, prime bootstrap mentality. I miss the idea of a community. That's why this place is so beautiful. A place to come together, to transform things together, all by our willingness to give up the lead inside of us. So how do we birth more elders? In a culture that doesn't really see the elder, we have to do this work on our own. We have to take up that mantle for ourselves. And it requires a process of transformation that has 3 stages. Number 1, it's the breakdown stage. It's the who am I stage. In this stage of becoming an elder, you are going to release and break down everything you think you know you are about yourself. You're going to get real curious about your beliefs, your ideas, your labels, your identities, the things you think are true but might not be. I have a whole journal entry I did once upon a time in my 30s, and it goes on for pages, and I labeled it, Things I Think Are True But Probably Are Not. It's a good exercise, an excellent exercise. As you start to break these things down, then you can start to ask, where did they come from? Get curious. Did it come from the culture? Did it come from family? Did it come out of self-preservation? Did it serve you for a time and now it no longer does? Did it provide you with a little protection in a time of vulnerability? Well, then fine. It had its usefulness, but now we let it go. Right? We decide what we have collected as armor, and we melt it down. You can't wear armor if you're going to be an elder. The next step after we've broken everything down is the reflection stage, or the what do I stand for stage. Because now if you've broken down all of your beliefs, all of your ideas and your truths and your labels, well, now you have to find out, well, what do I stand for? What are my ethics? What are my morals? What are my principles? What are my convictions? What's the hill I'm going to die on? You've got to find that out. Because if before you were choosing not to lie and steal because of some moral code that you've borrowed from a philosophy or a religion, and now you don't have that, now you have to decide if you're going to not lie or steal because it's not okay with you. Because it belongs to you. It's your ethics, your morals, your principles and convictions. And once that you decide that this is the way you want to live, that this is your inner compass, then you are that much less likely to get swept up in some kind of belief system or idea that could take you so far away from your wholeness and our oneness. After you have decided what you are going to stand for and stand on, the third stage is the rebirth stage, or the who will I be? Now you have a choice. Because before, you were just playing the roles that you'd collected, and now you understand that these roles are interchangeable, they're playful. If 3 different people go up the mountaintop to see an elder, they're likely all going to come back down and describe that elder differently, down to the way that person dressed, the accent they spoke with, the methods that they used, because the elder can transform him or herself depending on the needs of the person in front of them, depending on the situation that they find themselves in, depending on the needs at the moment. The elder is a magician who can change the way that we see the world. And they do that by understanding the way that we see the world. They live with 1 foot inside and 1 foot outside the culture. Lastly, I want to age into remembering. I want to age into remembering what my soul is here for. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just read a little excerpt of a piece that I wrote. In the height of the pandemic, this was in 2021, and the title of this article is, "We Did Not Come Here to Be Agreeable." This is just a little excerpt from this. I called it the Remembering. Remember, we did not come into this body to be quiet or safe. We did not choose to be alive in such incredible times of change to be sidelined, victimized, or used. We did not choose to call this endangered planet home, only to be ignorant, dismissive, complicit, or bought and paid for in its demise. No soul takes a leap of faith into a human body and then decides that silencing itself is the best way to spend a handful of decades. Let's find our voices and speak our truth. Let's live more aligned to our own essence right now, even if this means we stand out as eccentric or weird. The people who call us weird are the same people who later wish they could be as free as we are. Our freedom serves as a permission slip for those who might be looking for a way to wear soulful freedom for themselves. Let's speak a truth we've never dared speak before. Let's give ourselves the opportunity to fail miserably at something, just for fun and a dose of humility. Let's go somewhere we've never gone, even if this is in our own neighborhood. Let's try something we've never done. Be fully alive even while much of the world remains asleep, lulled into false confidence by stories of a sweeter afterlife or better next life. Remember, we did not come here to be a silent witness, a mere bystander, an enabler, or apologist for the ugly aspects of our society. We are here to move the needle of justice definitively forward, not just watch it hopelessly wobble. In the words of Andrew Harvey, we are here to, quote, transform this whole planet and all of its institutions, all of its arts, all of its sciences into burning mirrors of love and justice. We did not come here with a plan to be agreeable. We did not think to our soulful selves how we couldn't wait to come down into a body and then acquiesce to someone else's agenda at the expense of our own health, well-being, or principles. It's natural that we all want to belong, but if we just put on a team shirt that violates or muffles the call of our soul, we aren't doing the world any favors. If something is true, then let's state unequivocally that it is true. If it looks like a truth and walks like a truth, it probably is a truth. But if it is false and masquerading as a truth, if it is hurtful and abusive and telling us that this is the new normal and we ought to get used to it, then it is up to us to find the courage to challenge, nudge, cajole, question, test, suggest, and wake people up. The world is counting on us to come out from behind the safety net of our cultural stories and live up to a higher standard of truth. If we do this, the stories people tell in the future might not be about long ago battles between good and evil. The stories they tell might be about us and how we changed the game forever. And at the time, I didn't think I was writing about the role of the elder. But today, I think I am. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Well, there were so many nuggets in there, and I didn't take notes, but I am thankful that our services are recorded and they're on our YouTube channel. So there is a YouTube channel. I think it's called Your Lake Harriet Spiritual Community YouTube channel. But anyway, they're out there, so you can always go back and listen to them. So, Keri, thank you for the excellent message, because I just turned 71 in May. And so I've been wondering, what is my role as an older person, as an elder? And then, of course, I have my sisters and my siblings teasing me, "You're getting old." And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm going kicking and screaming. I'm not going to be old. But what was I kicking and screaming against? It's against the cultural idea of aging. So you gave me some other perspectives, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Give her another round of applause. All right, so Lake Harriet Spiritual Community is funded partly in donations, and so donations help us to keep the building open and keep this space available for events and for great speakers. So in just a moment, the ushers will be passing the baskets. So give what you can today. If there are Venmo codes in the baskets as well. And consider becoming a regular donor. So if you go to our website, there is a button that you can click on to become a regular donor. So consider that. Another way to support this community is through volunteering. So I forgot to mention that on October 25th, our semi-annual fundraiser, the Psychic Fair, is happening. So I think we still might need a few more volunteers. See me afterwards if you're available that day and would like to volunteer. And if you'd like to volunteer or put your name on the list for those situations where we might need volunteers, there are forms in the garden room that you can fill out as well. So thank you. Give what you can give today and support this community.
Ain't life sweet when we know what we're doing? Ain't life sweet when we're not afraid to care? Ain't life sweet when we know what we're doing? Ain't life sweet when we're not afraid to care? You take your money, keep it, don't tell me who to become. Take your age-old wisdom with you to kingdom come. Degrees and all that education don't help where I come from. Born and raised in the boonies beside the river, my home. Born and raised in the boonies beside the river, my home. But ain't life sweet when we know what we're doing? And ain't life sweet when we're not afraid to care? Ain't life sweet?
Thank you for that song, Gary. We're always curious about what you're going to play next and how it ties in. Ain't life sweet, even as we age with this. So God's perfect love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Blessed be. Aho. All right. Okay, so as part of our tradition, for those of you who may not know, is we circle up and our speaker usually leads us in a closing message. So we have a small group today. I was wondering if we could start, let's see, maybe right where you're standing, Lori is standing, and create the circle here. Start it here. I think that'll be big enough. Cool. All right. Okay, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Good job.
We actually kind of grew as the morning went, it seems like. All right. Well, let's just take a moment and feel the connection between us here in this community, this glorious space and this opportunity to be together, and each of us to grow in whatever way that, whatever you're taking away from this today, whether it's in compassion or creativity or wisdom. And let's just ground that down into our bodies, breathing all the way down into our feet. Exhaling any worries or concerns or stresses, and letting yourself be filled up with this new inspiration and empowerment and connection and possibility. Let's just send a squeeze of hands. I'm going to start it around the right, and we'll take it around the circle. That went fast. Let's bring your hands together in front of your heart. Thank you so much for joining me here today. You can, I do have a newsletter if you'd like to stay in touch with me outside here. That'd be wonderful. Namaste. Namaste. Mm-hmm.